This is a recording of the Chronicles of Clint Stone, Book 1, The Feast, by Some Guy Named Ted.
Clint Stone was a good man, well-meaning in his actions, at least to the people he liked or was trying not to offend, and not too barbaric for an outsider. He could still mess up like the rest of us. But, in true Clint fashion, even his screw-ups were bigger than the rest of ours, and Clint was not one to just let things lie after it got heated. It was, just over a year after the Noah's markets, and we had been invited to a feast celebrating a recent economic upswing. One of the landowners on the planet of Thunas Major, where we happened to be for the week, had recently found gold on his property and was now the wealthiest being on the continent. It was a very large vein of gold. The landowner invited everyone of importance in a 100-mile radius to his home in the country for a party. Clint was invited simply because the landowner had seen him out of his transport's window and thought he looked odd. To be fair, Clint was odd, but the landowner really should have checked his guests more carefully before letting them into his house. You can't let Clint near beautiful women and expect nothing to happen.
"I've never seen anything quite like this,"
Clint said as he looked over the landowner's house. It was a large, sprawling affair, with 3 stories and balconies on each. Vegetation grew all across the front, colored blue and red with flowers, and the house itself was built of a silvery gray stone that shined when the light hit it just right. In the lawn, hundreds of tables and tents were set up, coating the whole place with a garish flare. Thousands of people wandered among them, conversing and sampling the treats set out on the tables. I replied. I've been to several.
"Were you invited to any of them?"
Well, no, but that's beside the point. Clint chuckled and walked away, walking through the crowd as easily through water, towering head and shoulders above everyone there, following his nose to a table heaped high with steaming meat and dripping with fat. If I knew anything about Clint, there wouldn't be anything left inside of 10 minutes. That man seemed to inhale everything he could get his hands on. I was left free to walk about the patio and sample some treats for myself. I gathered a plate filled with candied nuts, grilled vegetables, and several slices of ripe, juicy thu melon. I sunk my teeth into the thu melon and moaned with pleasure. It had been a long time since I'd had anything this sweet or juicy.
"Excuse me, sir,"
a voice interrupted my revelry. I opened my eyes and saw the landowner himself standing in front of me. What was his name? Cherbosh? Sherbert? Cerberus, that was it. The native Thuni stood under just beneath my height, with his tight gray skin and jet black eyes. No pupils or irises, just pure black from lid to lid. His face was similar to that of a human's, with the notable exception of having a nose, just a smooth expanse across the center of his face.
"Did I hear correctly that you are traveling with Clint Stone? The human, the race that no one has seen before?"
he asked me. I swallowed hurriedly, not wanting to offend our host by not speaking to him. Yeah, that's him.
"Fascinating. Did he really take out a whole garrison during his escape from Noah's?"
Cerberus asked me with a note of excitement in his voice. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if this Cerberus was a supporter of the Srun Empire or not. Technically, we were still escaped slaves, on the run from our owners and captors in the Srun Empire.
"Oh, don't worry. I'm not going to turn him in. Don't tell anyone, but we aren't too fond of the Empire out here. You can tell us,"
he reassured me, nodding his head. Well, no, he didn't take out a garrison, just a few guards.
Are all the stories true about him? They say he outdrank 3 Urk until they died, and supposedly survived a trip to the Death World, Marion. Are any of these tales true? They seem too fantastic to be real."
I can assure you, they're all very real. He did all of those things and more.
"That is wonderful. What else has he done?"
I was about to reply when I heard a different voice floating over the crowd. It was Clint's voice, and he was saying something he rather shouldn't be saying.
"I must say you look beautiful, Lady Knight. Your eyes are like nothing I have seen before. Gazing into them is like gazing into space in all its glory."
A shy giggle followed that pronouncement. I turned in horror to see Clint in conversation with our host's daughter, a young Thuny. She barely came up to his chest, but she seems enthralled by him. I suppose Clint had no way of knowing but to talk to a female Thuny, unless you were related or courting, without permission of her male guardian, was one of the greatest insults one could give in Thuny culture. It meant that the males of the house could not keep a check on the female, and that the female was, well, a slut. The only thing worse Clint could do now was to... He bent at the waist and, lifting her hand in his, pressed his lips to it. The conversation stopped dead, the silence rippling out from Clint as those talking realized what had happened. Not a breath was heard from any of the 2,000 guests. Clint had touched a female Thuny. Not only that, but he had kissed her. That was the gravest of all breaches of etiquette that Clint could have possibly committed. Even killing his host paled in comparison to what he had just done. He would be imprisoned, tortured, put to death, skinned, and quartered. Hopefully, in that order. Clint looked up, noticing the horrified silence.
"What?"
he asked. There was no reply, just several burly guards pushing through the crowd and seizing Clint by the arms. I turned to Cerberus beside me and said, "You may want to tell them to release him. Things will get ugly if you don't." The Thuny man looked at me and I thought a vein was going to burst in his head. It was so large.
"Do you think you can order me about in my house? Your friend will be punished for what he has done, no matter who he is."
Cerberus turned back to the guards.
"Bring that man here now,"
the landowner ordered, red with fury. It was impressive how he managed to pull that off, considering his skin was gray. The guard shoved Clint forward and he stumbled. He straightened and rolled his shoulders. "Don't kill them!" I shouted at him, wishing to avoid bloodshed over a misunderstanding. He didn't acknowledge what I said, but he also didn't pull out any of his weapons, which was a good sign. Instead, he reached out and grabbed both the guards by their necks. He effortlessly lifted them high in the air, their limbs flailing helplessly. He shook them violently.
"When I put you down, you will walk away and leave me be, understood? Or the last thing you will experience in this life is my fist going so far down your throat I can rip out your stomach."
Clint growled at them. Giving them one last good shake, he dropped them. They hit the ground in a heap, scrambling to stand. They did so, and stumbled away, rubbing their throats.
"Anyone else?"
Clint roared. No one answered. He nodded, giving a single swift jerk.
"No? Good. Let's leave it that way. Tedex, I think it might be best if we leave."
I wholeheartedly agreed, and I hurried over to him, hunched a little beneath all those glares of the crowd. Clint seemed unaffected, and he even grabbed another slice of the meat. I got closer to Clint, and I could see why he had been tempted to talk to the Thuny girl. Her gray skin seemed to glow with a faint silver sheen, and her eyes truly were like gazing into space in all its ancient majesty. She was still gazing deeply at Clint. He seemed to have that effect on women. Young, old, married, single, they all seemed to be ready to drop everything for a chance to talk to Clint. He gazed back at her and he winked. He took a half step forward, but I grabbed him before he could do anything else stupid, and grabbed him and dragged him off. He turned and walked with me. The crowd spoke in hushed whispers as we walked through, but they parted before Clint and we got out with no trouble. I looked back and I could see the girl gazing longingly at Clint. We got back to the ship and we left. So you see, Clint is not perfect. It seems even humans have their flaws. It's just that they can cover them with their skills. What story should I tell you next time you come visit?
This has been a recording by Uncle Lyle for my fiancé and anyone who loves HFY. I hope you liked it, and remember to come back next time.